Hey, Dave and Mickey.
Thanks, Nighthawk. I'm Dave.
And I'm Mickey.
Now that's the truth, if I've ever heard it. And this is Shiny Side Out, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio. That's the website name. Then it's home to fresh ideas. I want to encourage you to buy some merchandise or donate if you like anything we say. You can donate to us as well. You can support us or the station, doesn't really matter which, but first the station and then us, if you've got the capacity to do so. Join us in the chat room where I am right now. I'm just going to say hello to Popsicle Toes, Lavender Streams, Coincidence of Wants, it's Cryptic Rick. There's a whole bunch in there, and hello to you. And you can talk to us online while we're on air, which is fantastic. Now, Mickey, did you know that this is show number 654?
450 and 600. That's what's it, 12, 13 years. That's what that is.
That's what that, yes, right there. Plus, like, there's 2 weeks a year we don't do anything because the station's down.
That's that.
Christmas and New Year programming. You know what you have to do? You have to tune in to us online. If you find us on YouTube, right, you can actually listen to us live, and you go to revolution.radio. You can do that also through a web or on a smart device. There's apps out there where it broadcasts through a number of those talk radio platforms. Forget them all. There's tons. Just go to the station's website. They got a list. You can listen at home, just sitting up with your cup of coffee. I just finished mine. You might be able to tell. And with your feet up, listening to us and Revolution Radio on a Gray's Tabletop Digital Radio. Ha!
Ha ha!
What you can do these days is unbelievable, isn't it?
I know, right?
Yeah, there's a segue for later. Now, if you missed Solaris' show, I don't know. I did. I was doing research, so apologies to Solaris. She always has a great guest, always has a great show. And I'm hoping that while I'm stalling you, she's going to type in to my chat with her what it was she was talking about and who her amazing guest was. Because usually has amazing guests. Well, actually, all the time she has amazing guests. Great shows. You know what? She's an author. She's a, I don't know, videographer. She's been in documentaries. She has a lifetime of stories. And that's why she speaks out on radio about it. So I really appreciate her. Thank you, Solaris, for warming up the crowd for us here on Revolution Radio. Now, Mickey, I'm broadcasting out of Dark and Joan country. How about you?
I'm in the right country, which is nice and toasty today, actually.
Yeah, I think we only hit 25 degrees Celsius, by the way.
Yeah, we're scratching 30, I think.
Nice.
I'm in the deep west, so it's very hot. What?
You can tell by his drawl.
Howdy, 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 howdy.
What? Well, you know, satire is just an expression of love, really. Now,
okay, that's a new one.
Well, it is. Yeah, what are you gonna do?
And irony is the ugly cousin of humor.
Irony.
Sure.
Sure. We feed irony fish heads in the basement.
Oh,
now,
yummy.
So
Yummy.
that was Bart's unnamed twin brother. So
what's his name?
yeah, I forget his name.
Oh, I'll figure it out.
Just keep it boiling. So Becky and I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land from which we broadcast. Wow.
Hugo,
that's right.
without looking it up, it just came to me. Hugo.
See, when someone says I can't remember it, and they just get all flustered, I said, don't. Your search is running. If you hit enter again and instigate another search, you're just going to slow the first search down.
That's right.
It'll get there. It'll
That's
get
the
there.
truth.
It's I just picture someone running to like a library and going to the index card system, trying to find The Simpsons, reading through all of the notes and all the characters in each show, and finally getting to the point where they can, find the book with that history in it. It is very funny. And every time you tap them on the shoulder, you're just bugging them. Now, Eki, this week, again,
Yeah.
since last week, is pretty hectic.
Yes.
It's pretty hectic. I'm going to say.
It's hectic.
We used to talk about the quickening, where things just start coming at you in ever increasing speed. Time seems to be quicker, and people talk about that. The Earth's rotation it used to be slower. Every couple of years we had to make an adjustment. Now it's actually quicker, and we have to adjust it the other way.
You're right. That's actually true, everybody. The Earth's rotation has sped up, which you don't really you don't notice it, but it does matter. It does.
Yeah. Like if an ice skater is spinning around with its arms out, it's spinning slowly compared to if it pulls its arms in. It'll spin quicker because the center of mass is not spread out. It's now as small as it can be, and therefore it has the opportunity and angular momentum to actually increase its rotation speed per second. And I can't explain why we're speeding up. However, it's a good notion. With all the things we've put into orbit, I don't know how that might affect it, because they're all clinging on, Becky. They're all clinging on to our gravity.
Well, that's the truth. Yep.
So I would imagine we'd actually be slowing down, but it's not to be. So who knows? I don't know. Maybe the core of the Earth has centered itself or something. I can't explain it. I don't want to even try.
Well, they're saying it has to do. This is really interesting. It has to do with the melting of the ice caps.
And that's cool. Yeah.
And you know how the Earth is actually not round; it's sort of like a squashed kind of.
It's an oblate spheroid.
It is, which is quite broad at the equator, so it kind of sort of bulges there, and less so at the poles. But with less ice at the poles, that weight is kind of lessened, and that shape change in the Earth has, it seems, or so they say, increased by milliseconds or whatever it is. The Earth's spinning velocity.
Yeah,
so.
Right.
Look, and again, if you think about it from a physics point of view, if you put your arms out, you spin slowly. If you bring them in, you spin faster.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of what's happening here, kind of, sort of, right? Well, again, I haven't worked through the physics myself at this point, but I get it, I see it. Is it something? Could it be something else? Yeah, of course, it could be something else.
Could be anything.
Always
right.
Could be. Who knows? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, ultimately, things are happening and we pretend we know, right? Because we're all so smart. We're ever so smart, all of us, right? But ultimately, we're just running around in the dark trying to figure things out. But anyway, look, enough of that. Let's get on to much more pressing matters, my friend.
Yeah. Look, since what do you want to call it? I'm not sure. I heard a couple of names this week and I've not been able to remember any of them. And this was about the pages exploding, the walkie-talkies blowing up. And and I don't know what to call it, Mickey, but I'll tell you, it's one name, though, stood out. People will call it Operation whatever it is, right? And I can't remember. They're really lame. But this other one, was called out, I think, by Wion News, and they said it to them. It is the modern day Trojan horse.
Oh, completely.
So, yeah. So look, I've done it like a timeline, and these are all estimates. Yeah, estimates all over the place. And I've done a timeline to attempt to explain it to those who don't really understand it.
Yeah,
So if
enough.
you're already up to date, it's okay. Maybe, hopefully, you'll learn something. But this goes back at least 30 months ago to the initiation of a plan. If that's the best way to put it. Because when you work backwards from today, well, the 17th of September, when the pages went off, it is to get to that point. I'm going to work backwards on this. This was a use it or lose it moment for Israel. Now, Israel hasn't personally come out and said, yes, we did it.
They never do. They never do.
Yeah. But if they were to say that, great. That's fantastic. That would at least we'd be able to pin it. But suffering this, some knowledge gaps in here, I'm going to say that it was CNN-News 18 was the site that said that the plan was to detonate all the devices on the day of a conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. This is like a boots on the ground conflict day. If it was to commence with an invasion. And that was their plan. This is what CNN-News 18, it's a YouTube channel, that's what they said, and it appears in all intents and purposes to be a real news station, but I'm not sure. Just because it has CNN there doesn't mean anything. Could be anything. It doesn't seem to have the normal programming that CNN has, so I don't know whose station or what country it runs out of, but there you go. And they're the ones who said that it's a use it or lose it moment if they were to be discovered. If the devices that have been modified were ever discovered to have been modified, they would have all thrown them into a big pile.
Yeah,
And it wouldn't have been successful. So I appreciate from a wartime perspective, although this isn't kind of wartime yet, what they had done and set up for use. So the pager itself was... Here comes some interesting information. So 5,000 pages were ordered from Gold Apollo. However, Gold Apollo doesn't produce, and they outsourced it to BAC Consulting, who again didn't produce them. The company's only a couple of years old, and it only is a trading intermediary company. That's all it is. So they don't manufacture anything themselves anyway. They outsource it to somebody else. And the manufacturing was meant to be... it's still unknown. It's still unknown, that's right, because it was meant to be in Budapest. But there's only one employee of BAC Consulting. Isn't that crazy? So...
Not really. Go on, yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, but I understand. I understand what you're saying, what you're going to say. So let's start from there was 3,000 injured, but 5,000 pages were ordered. So they must have been sitting on undeployed pages or non-deployed ones. And I've seen some images of, mobile phone shops or stores, suffering equally difficult times with, their stores being on fire or destroyed, because it maybe depends on how many they had. So if you go back to 30 months ago, someone devised a plan, and to execute the plan, you had to, if someone said, like, say someone came to you and said, look, I want to be able to put something in a pager and a walkie-talkie, and I want them to go off when we send a code or do something, right? And they go, yeah, cool. So what are we going to need? So you set your items list, you start the manufacturing of those, and whether, this is a bit iffy because no one knows, but there's two scenarios. One is they were manufactured with them in it, or they were modified after manufacturing during shipping and then delivered as a modified unit. So those two scenarios still are, let's just call them one thing. They were in transit. So they were either produced or they're in transit when they were modified. So the 13th of February of this year, the Hezbollah leader warned to its people that phones are dangerous. And so what that did, it generated a huge amount of paranoia. Don't use them, put them in steel boxes, destroy them, whatever you have to do, but stop using mobile phones. Of course, because you can be tracked. If you have an app, any app, or you have a telephone system, people can find out where you are. You can even watch them from space these days. So that's rightly so. If you've got an enemy who has the technology to track you, that's valid. It is valid. So the building of paranoia must have existed way before that, because how on earth, if I'm breaking this down, how on earth can you get your enemy to ditch its successful mobile phone communications and go to pages for communication, propagation of messages, right? It must be an amazing task to generate that much paranoia. So, and that only came at this year, but that 30 months ago is when they would have had to have started all of this, because of lead times, product, time taken to manufacture them. Yeah. So they began shipping, these devices began shipping in 2022. It's what I've discovered today, or this week leading up today. All this is a build-up of what I've learned over the last week. And I've cleansed it for information that wasn't as relevant as you might think. So some of that was that there was unverified EVs, smartphones, solar batteries, all these other things that people have been throwing out there, none of which have been verified. What we have verification on was the walkie-talkie and the pager only. So that's all I want to talk about. But the walkie-talkies themselves were originally made a decade ago. They stopped manufacturing a decade ago. And these are copies of those from a very long time ago. Who knows? Who knows who had a stockpile of those to modify? Yeah? And they only had about 450 of those in, or say 500 maybe, of those in the ecosystem in Hezbollah's use. So, as far as I'll get to something in a minute, Mackie, I promise. I want to talk about cost, but the September 17th, there was 3,000 injured and 12 dead, and the walkie-talkies, 20 dead and 450 injured. Now, collateral damage was only announced for the pages, and they had two. Only 2 people were killed as collateral damage. Now, to hit 3,000 people and only get, well, say 3,000, round it down, and only have 2 collateral damage, that's not bad. Even with, say you had tactical strikes from drones, you could end up having more collateral damage than that. If it was collateral damage from missiles, much more. So a pound for pound success rate is actually pretty good, I have to say. And
No,
look,
look,
I don't want to sound like a fanboy for this, but it's the changing face of military, because we're all holding or in our pocket we have a communication device, and we live by it.
The thing is this, though, and this is your point, and I agree with it 100%, is that this was an almost surgical strike, right?
Yeah.
Now, did everybody who have these pages, were they all Hezbollah members? I mean, we haven't heard any different, so maybe, yes. Walkie-talkies, probably more likely, like highly unlikely, and especially if they were, part of an order that Hezbollah put through, right? Now, the reason they made of mobile phones is because mobile phones are inherently insecure. Now, pages are a lot more secure because they're using a very simple messaging protocol, and walkie-talkies are very, very secure because, well, they're pretty much channel-based line of sight, right? You're not really bouncing walkie-talkies. So, or you can, but the point is, it's a device-to-device communication with a walkie-talkie, right? Or if it's channeled, it's one-to-many or many-to-one. But again, on a very specific channel, right? And you can switch channels all the time, so it's very hard to track. But it was a surgical kind of thing because they did. But what I find astounding is, because yes, it was sophisticated, but it wasn't super highly technical, right? All they did, they put a high explosive into the pager, and because the pager is smaller than the walkie-talkie, there were less people killed. And many more injured because there was just less damage done with the walkie-talkie. With the pager. The walkie-talkie, being a larger device, could hold more explosives, so it makes sense that a lot more people were killed, and the injuries are probably a lot more severe. I mean, a lot more severe, right? But essentially, you've taken out 3,500.
Yeah.
You've taken out 3,500 most likely Hezbollah members, and of course it was Israel. You got to be a moron not to think it was Israel. No one else could have done this. In this fashion, in my opinion. I mean, if there was another actor, then I'd really like to know who it is, right? But and another thing is this: I did watch the footage of these devices going off as much as is available.
Yeah, me too.
And the only person injured with the walkie-talkies, I don't know because I haven't seen it, but with the pages, the only persons injured were the people holding or carrying them.
That's right.
There's this famous one that you must have seen it in a fruit shop.
It's at the market, yeah.
This guy, and he was even though there was a guy right next to him. I mean, right next to him.
Yeah.
Right. Didn't even get a splinter, as far as I can see. It's only the guy on the ground. I mean, it's a horrible thing. Don't get me wrong. But so is all of war. All of war is a horrible thing. The question is this, though, Dave. Now, does this contravene the Geneva Conventions and general agreements on the rules of engagement in war? Because
I actually watched something today on that.
Yeah, because by the conventions, you're not allowed to target communications devices, right? Which is interesting.
Yeah.
So it is in contravention. That, of course, Israel doesn't claim responsibility because they don't want to be held accountable.
Yeah, that's right. It was somebody else. It was a manufacturing flaw, Mickey. That's what it was.
Yeah. They don't care. They don't care about taking credit. I'm not interested in taking credit. I just want to do it. I want to get it done, brother. That's all I want, right?
So, I heard through one channel, still unverified though, and I wanted to bring it up because it would be critical that if they had a tamper switch as well. So if you had one and you wanted to check it out, you couldn't because if you opened it, it would make it fail on you.
Yeah.
So the walkie-talkies were copies, or these are IC V82, I think they're called, the model number for the walkie-talkie. I've got VHF walkie-talkies here, and they've got a 5K radius, better in line of sight, much reduced if you're in foliage or inside buildings, but it's still good enough. Hills and stuff, no, you're not going to be able to communicate over a hill, but otherwise, if you're in a valley together, you can communicate quite well. I even been able to stretch all the way to the freeway, and I've got a funny story about it. I won't share it. There is the other thing, Mickey. So that's the 17th, 18th. Then there was a gap, and on the 21st there was a missile attack. Now the missile attack, they waited to do this intentionally. Now whether they have people on the ground who were informants that said, look, everyone's entering this building, this is the address, and hit it, or they could just track mobile phones, or however they worked it out. Not sure. Satellites today can look at the freckles on the back of your palm or back of your hand from space, and they're not bigger than a computer monitor. So they say that you could read a monitor through a window, Becky, with the satellites that they've got now.
That's what they tell us.
Yeah, and imagine what they can actually do. They can probably read your DNA. So they blew up the war room meeting, all of the officials who were attending this war room meeting, in the basement of a building. They blew the entire thing apart. There's nothing left. So the intel that's being used in this operation is just outstanding. I've got to say, and I might sound like I'm totally impressed. No, I expect that today every person on the planet can be found. It would be very difficult to disappear entirely. Everything that you do, your psychological profile, everything about you, all of the history, everything on an individual basis is there for someone to collate. Right. So, look, from the point of view of the Trojan horse, I've got to say, Meki, that that Hezbollah paid for the devices. So if I was looking at a cost, so this is a cost per kill, and you're looking at something like the new, the new American rifle that's just been approved for use for the army, has an 80 cents per shot cost of the rounds. 80 cents. Like that'll add up. You've got to you're going to exceed your hourly rate in shells that you're firing, right? The bullets you're firing. There's something inherently smart about this. Now, how much would it have been to cost this out? The person you're targeting bought the device at the price you told them it was going to cost. You could have factored in the disassembly, the modification, the assembly, and the code, and the firmware patching, whatever it was that you had to do to it to be able to trigger it with that certain string on the pager, at least. Just how, Maggie?
Oh no, it would have been a very cost-effective operation.
Extremely cost-effective.
Now, okay, Plastique C4 and next generation, smart explosives are not cheap, and clearly something like that was being used here. It wasn't binary. It was definitely a single type of material that didn't have to be combined. It probably required an electrical charge, some kind of signal coming from the device, which of course could easily deliver, but it would be expensive explosive. But if you sell, it might have been ultimately it might have been a net zero operation. So you might even have walked away with a little bit of profit from it. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
And see, I find it. See, right now, I can tell you that the Hezbollah has just completely restructured its supply chain. Completely.
Mm-hmm.
They will never ever again buy from one person, and they will never ever again not look inside, because they never looked inside before. It's just not something they did, as far as I know, right? And inside the device, sorry.
Yeah.
And because they didn't, of course, that's just what happened. They didn't look inside, so
call it looking under the hood, Mickey.
Say again?
They didn't look under the hood.
No, they certainly did not, right? They should have, right? But clearly, and much to their, well, I mean, it was just bad. It was just bad on bad security on their part. There's no excuse for it, really. I mean, they didn't. And the thing is this: you can, well, maybe they can't, but these days you can actually sniff out the chemical composition of explosives.
That's right.
So at the airport,
they call them explosives dogs, and they're trained to do it.
Oh, even
I know there's technology that does it too. Yeah.
So I mean, I get stopped frequently when I was flying.
For some reason, I don't know.
It's just crazy. No profiling there. No, anyway, so what they do is they take all your stuff, and then they have this like electric wand. They pass through it all, and it detects all kinds of explosives, etc., etc. And I've been to a gun range a few days before that in the States when I came home, but I guess I didn't have any of the stuff that was being looked at near any guns or shot or whatever, so nothing was picked up. Because I was thinking, that's what I was thinking as it was being done. Oh, they're going to pick that up, But luckily, that wasn't picked up. So, but having said that, it's just a complete failure. I guess it's complacency as well. Because again, remember, please, everybody, this has never been done before, ever.
That's right.
Now it will never be done again, because that. So you can play every trick once at least, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is it. Okay, you will not be able to play this trick again. The next thing they're going to do is put the explosive in boots or tie pins or whatever else Hezbollah or whoever else is going to be there going to buy. Okay, it's going to be something else, but it will never be this again. And yeah.
Sorry, the reason why I'm laughing is because I'm sure Hezbollah are now on the phone going, I don't know, we've lost all our pages and walkie-talkies. What can you sell us? And they go, mobile phones. They don't explode, right? No, they don't. No, they've got a great history there that they don't explode.
No, it never happened. What? No, bad idea.
So the thing that I laughed about before the show with Mackie was who pays for it, who paid for it, and to be able to cost something that the enemy pays for, and you destroy them, and you're not at a loss. Like you may possibly even made money. I think that's part of the genius of this.
Oh yeah,
Mackie, we saw the Ukraine-Russian war being won by drones.
Yeah.
Drones, just one from Hobbyco or whoever not Toys R Us, they're gone. Whoever it is, some hobby shop where you just make some mods and now it can lift, a 10 kilo, shake charge and drop it. What? Good on you, right? For putting together the tech that already exists. They didn't have to recreate something. They didn't. Okay, we're going to go back to the drawing board here. We're going to blueprint something new. No. Super cheap. That's not a plug for Super Cheap Auto. Very effective. So when you think about what it is that you're trying to achieve, you only have to harm a combatant to take them out of duty. So all wars, it's not about killing them, it's just about being able to inflict enough damage for them to be taken out of the war.
Yeah.
That's the ideal thing, because that doesn't cost as much. You shoot someone in the leg and it can break their leg bone and they can be taken out for weeks. It's great.
Yeah.
It's so much, it's less effort than a headshot. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So what pound for pound, like dollar for injury thing can you do that is the most effective in warfare, and they'll find a way to make that happen. We found that it was too expensive to use the javelins on anything. The javelins were too expensive to use. Use it against a helicopter, that's a high value target, or a jet fighter, yeah, you can do that. A tank, yeah, sure, if you really want. It's got to be a good tank, can't be just an armoured vehicle. You can't do it against a person. It's not cost effective. So the frightening thing that I shared with Meki from a short film about these tiny little drones that can sit on your palm, and they've got 30 grams of explosives, and they fly to its identified target and land on its forehead and seize that person by firing the shaped charge through their skull. That's from a short film. I'm not advocating any violence. Neither of us are. We're watching what's happening and plotting out how this could go in the future. Now, that was 7 years ago that short film came out, and I'd be sure that they'd be able to do that by now.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
So, yep.
And more. But yeah, no, absolutely.
And more.
100%.
Yeah, that's right. So with the amount of tech that's going into space and what we're seeing and what we know to be true and I suppose the cost of living struggles that we're all experiencing, even though petrol has gone down, how good is it to fill up your car now? Oh,
I know.
It's like
it's
8
cheaper.
years ago.
Much cheaper.
It's still not cheap. No, it's not. And with everything that we're seeing happen around the planet, I can only... I'll finish the thought. So we can only imagine what's going to happen next. I'm hearing words that Israel might go in. We'll just have to into Iran, and we'll just have to see what happens.
Well, right now, this is as of less than an hour ago.
Yeah.
Lebanon fired a whole bunch of rockets into Israel.
8,000 since October.
No, not now. Right now.
Yeah, right now. Yeah.
Where they hit a lot of targets. A few were shot down, but a lot of targets were destroyed inside Israel as well. So
I know Israel fired into Iran and hit a lot of weapons storage facilities.
Yep.
One of them looks like a tactical nuke, but it isn't.
There was some talk about that. It's the same that Ukraine is doing to Russia. I mean, they blew up a huge munitions and I guess equipment dump. Past Moscow. This is
that's right.
Moscow. Can they hit Moscow? I think we know they can hit Moscow.
I think they can.
Not,
that's
really,
right.
Not a question anymore, right? It's insane. It's craziness.
You asked me 4 years ago, Meki, and I would say, that's silly. None of this is going to happen.
Yeah, but it has. Right.
I really didn't think anything like this was possible. I thought, here comes Peacekeeper. I thought that land grabs were wrong, that everyone had learnt their lesson. Oh, you just got to sit on whatever land you've got. No, I was wrong. I thought that as toothless as the UN is, I thought that they were doing a reasonable job having people air their problems. I thought, but people are humans, yeah? And they'll do whatever they want. It doesn't matter what things you put in place to settle people down. You could spray lithium across the entire planet, make it the most gaseous thing other than nitrogen and oxygen, make it the next total in the list in our breathable air, and we'd still misbehave. So, and look, people are getting pushed to the limit, individually pushed to the limit, with the weather that's happening around the world, floods everywhere. Absolutely crazy, like 1.5 meter deep floods, just washing everything at ground level. And it's not just Taiwan or the Philippines or China. I saw, was it Argentina was underwater? I can't remember now. This week?
Everything, literally everything is underwater. It's insane. It's like, what? It's flooding, and if it's not flooding, it's burning. If it isn't burning, there's a massive storm. If there's not a massive storm, then you've got some kind of mudslide. If you haven't got a mudslide, right, there's earthquakes. If you haven't got earthquakes, you've got volcanic activity. If you've got volcanic activity, chances are there's plague just around the corner coming for you, right? There's no place on the planet really anymore that is safe, because I mean everything again is on fire, and we had a fire here recently our fire season has started already. Interestingly enough,
right.
It was up near you actually, near the northern beaches there, right?
Yeah, so they had a controlled burn that was no longer controlled.
Yeah, I mean this is happening as well. And the reason for that is because we had a couple of years of like really rainy weather, a lot of growth, undergrowth, and they didn't really keep up with, I guess, controlling it that well. And before you know it, it's out of control, and the growth is there. It's too much growth. It can't be controlled and just catches fire. Right? It's not the trees that are the problem. It's the brush, the underbrush that's the issue. Because the trees actually don't catch fire easily. Popular do. Unless they're separate trees. But normally they don't, right?
Yeah.
It's insane. And you're right.
It's the material that can burn, the fire load,
Yeah.
which has not been in check for a number of years. And it's so bad, Mickey, you can't see 10 foot into the bush around my house.
Yeah, I believe
you can't see into the bush. You can't see into it.
That's pretty bad, actually. It's
pretty bad. Yeah. Oh, it's bad. So, and the fire can come along at ground level slowly in winter and just burn through it. And then it can come through after that's been burned through and just burn the mid-level. And then it can come through and only burn the canopy. You can get 3 fires in the same place. Because when they do the back burning, they only burn the ground level. It's
nuts. And the fire in Australia as well, we know now it goes. It can. So you're gonna fire somewhere, and then the embers and other sparking material is sucked up into the atmosphere, and you can have a fire front that is then spewing its fire 20 to 30 kilometers ahead of itself.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a fire here somewhere, like I say, it's a fire in the Blue Mountains, for argument's sake.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And in theory, those sparks and embers could go all the way to the city, which is
They did when I was young. There was a fire in the Blue Mountains, and the smoke trail came directly over our house, and it was raining burnt leaves.
Brother, that's not good.
Well, it wasn't good. No, we were lucky. We were just outside of the zone of them still glowing, like embers. But if the smoke is coming to you, the fire's coming to you.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we've learnt in Australia. And it's like, I know Laurel Canyon has been on fire. There's 3 fires in California, which is really scary. I just watched the documentary on Laurel Canyon about all the musicians from the 60s and 70s.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic doco if you watch that. I know the Doors lived up there too, and they mentioned them once or twice through the doco, but I think they were focusing on there was a couple of bands, I can't remember their names, but they used to play down at the Whiskey A Go-Go most nights of the week. And I know that the Doors played there as well. One of their live videos was filmed there. So watching those crazy fires, and we had not only we had the fire control fire that got out of control, but there was also a large warehouse, Mackie, in Sydney that burnt uncontrollably. They had something like 20 appliances. Just in Narara here, there was a fire in the bush down, near the KFC and with Wyoming Way between us and them. So only within a kilometre. My little we've got an application. It's called Fires, I think .io, or Fires Near Me, or something you can search for as an app, and it'll tell you. You put a radius, it'll alert you if there's a fire within your radius that you've set, and it allows you then to see the area that's been burnt. It's all tracked by satellite, so it remembers where it can detect the fire. So it watches it burn through and it measures the amount of hectares, or acres, if you will, of what's been burnt and which direction it's going in, and it can alarm you that you should be leaving. And it's a great tool. Also, the fireys themselves, that they're the people, the firefighters, here we call them the Fireys, they use that as their battle plan map.
Yeah.
So I've got friends. If you remember seeing the videos from 2019 where the fire truck goes through the fire and they put their fire blankets up against the window. It's in a dark forest at night, but all that's being illuminated is these red flames, and the fire truck, so they don't get incinerated inside the fire truck, they put them up against the windows on the inside. That's my friend Jasper. He's lived just across the street, and he was only a volunteer firefighter. I've had another friend of mine that's just come back from California to help with the fires. Hazza is his name. That's a short Australianism for Harry. He's just come back. Yeah, it's extraordinary where we're at with fires. I'm thinking, Meckie, every time I see these shots at night of an entire hill with only little fires everywhere and it's completely black except for the fires, I see in my mind and hear the words hell on earth. When I see it, if there's a description of it, the visualization of that would be the view that I'm seeing. I'm not saying I'm not there. I just say, what I see through the videos. Extraordinary, Meckie.
Well, it is evocative in many ways. They're very also, but I think we're not far off from the actual hell, because the thing is this. As we go through these things, you said people are individually affected earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that. And we're getting to a point where certain places on the planet will become unlivable. It's just you won't be able to live there because it is too hot, or there's no water, or the storms are too severe. I can see a time when the American Midwest, where you've got tornadoes, right, for example, they just become too volatile to live there. I mean, already in Australia, up in Queensland, Brisbane, there's the flooding plain, right? There's no insurance company anymore that will insure your house if you build there.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll become a vacant lot at some point, unless somebody builds, a very big dike or whatever. Similarly, in Australia, in the center, when we start approaching temperatures of 50 degrees and beyond, and it's the beyond where you have to worry about, because water, as Dave likes to point out frequently, at home is set to 50 or less than 50 degrees Celsius. Because
that's your hot water system, yeah.
That's scalding, that's scalding temperature. Anything beyond 50 degrees, and I've experienced 50-degree temperatures. Yeah, I tell you what, it's not fun. It really is.
Oh, you mean air temperatures? Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Air temperatures. Yeah, air temperatures. Oh, no, I don't. I mean, I've scalded myself with water, sure enough, but the air temperature is what the problem is. Plus, it dehydrates you very fast, very, very fast. No, so individually, it'll become hard for people to live in certain areas of the world. They'll become completely depopulated. Add to that the pressure of population migrations due to whatever, economics. We see that. Climate change, we see that. Already, islands will disappear, right? And the coastlines will change. Not as dramatically as 14,000 years ago, but dramatically enough. Already, Indonesia is moving its capital. As you know, Jakarta is sinking into the ground. It's sinking. And they are relocating the capital city to a place that hopefully won't sink. But we're seeing this change. Just down the road,
like in the Simpsons.
Almost. Even Singapore, interesting enough, Singapore has relocated its harbour from the south up to the north, northwest. Yeah. Oh yeah, that happened. And I remember this was well before COVID. I was in Singapore, and Dell had taken us to an enterprise briefing center, which is sort of
the good old days, Meckie.
Yeah, so essentially it's in a couple of days, and they bring experts in, and they brought in these people from the Singapore Harbour Authority who were working with Dell on the move. This was probably 7 or 8 years ago, maybe longer. And they explaining, and this was how long ago that was started, maybe even earlier than that. But they just, I guess, completed most of that. And it's a thing. These massive infrastructure projects, they're happening. And Singapore is at the forefront of shoring itself up against any potential sea level rises, right? Because they learned from the Dutch. And the Dutch, of course, are also in the process of making themselves more or less, flood-proof, or more flood-proof than they are. because all of Holland, all of the Netherlands is underwater, under the sea level. All
It's
of it.
below sea level, and if they stopped pumping it away, they'd flood. That's right.
There'd be nothing left. And so it will become harder over time. And this is what really makes me angry and I don't know, upset. We're talking about stopping climate change. We're talking about this magical 2.5 degrees. We have to stop the warming, blah blah blah, all that wonderful stuff, right? It's completely too late for that. We have to now work on how are we going to live with the consequences of what's happening. Because it's happening now. It's happening. We have never seen this many fires. I don't remember this many fires in my youth. I don't remember these many superstorms in my youth. I don't remember these massive flooding events in areas that weren't in Germany, Europe. People are being killed in floods in Europe, all over Europe, not in here or there, but everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is on fire. I mean, everything is on fire. Look at it. Historical towns that are hundreds of years old in Canada. Now, clearly, the fire wasn't as bad before because it was burned down before. Okay?
That's right.
But it didn't. It burned down now. And this is really a thing. And people, of course, the problem with Europe is they weren't really prepared for like heat waves, like 40
They
degrees.
didn't have air conditioning, Mackie.
They don't. We never needed it. I grew up in Germany. There's no air conditioning. There's heating. Air conditioning, you open the window. That's the air conditioning.
That's right.
Air conditioning, you're crazy. We didn't need it because it didn't go much beyond 30, 32 degrees Celsius. And if it did,
Mm-hmm.
that was a hot day. We went off school. Bye-bye, see you. It's too hot. No, really. And it's now but we're not dealing with the immediate problems. We just still somehow in the mind space of we're going to stop all of this. No, we're not. We now have to get ready for the new normal. And in fact, let's just take a step back here. Is humanity responsible for climate change? I don't know. Maybe. But the point is, let's say we're not. Let's say we're not, for argument's sake. And we do all this stuff like carbon saving and green energy and whatever, right? And we get away from fossil fuels. And then it turns out, this climate change was going to happen anyway. Because it happened in the past, right?
That's right.
It did happen in the past, many, many times. And maybe we're not responsible. And if we're not responsible, everything we're doing right now is completely pointless. Okay, it's completely pointless. But somebody's making money, and that's what's really at stake here, the money. People are making money of this stuff. They are making money hand over fist, Dave. There's so much money there, it's obscene. It's actually obscene how much.
Mackie.
Oh, it's not fair. I know. The poor parasitic, bankers.
That's
should
right.
really think more about them, right?
Do we have to? Because it wasn't
No,
on
I
my
don't
list.
really.
But
No, we really don't. But but I really, and I said this to my kids as well. They're only 10 and 8 years old. But I said we have to think about how we're going to live in this new world, right? Not. It's like we're pushing against a massive avalanche, right? Or we're trying to hold off a sand dune by pushing against it that's burying our town.
Mhm.
It's not going to happen. It's like, you can see it in your head, right? You're seeing the sand dune coming for you, but you're pushing it back against this. The sand is going to run through your fingers. Good luck to you. It can't be done. It can't be done. We need to figure out a way for all of us in the world to live with what is essentially a different world. It will be a different world. It just will be. You can stand on your head and deny it and what? No, it'll change. It'll change. And are we responsible? I don't know. It doesn't matter if we're responsible. We now have to live in a world that is like this because, all these fires and all these storms, all these floods and all these other things, right? That's the new normal. I am terrified of the new, I guess.
What are the new extremes?
1 in 100 year, 1 in 1,000 year extremes, 1 in 1,000 year events. That's what I'm terrified of. What is the event? Because the 1 in 100 year storm that we used to have, that's now normal. That's a normal storm. What's the next level of storm that we can look forward to here? Right? I mean, how fast can the winds get?
Well, Mackie, right before the music plays, I'll tell you, in Tasmania they had 163 km/h wind, not even from a storm. Just a cold front.
Insanity.
Yeah, it is. Look, this is the end of the first hour. We'll be back shortly after the break with our second hour, where we'll be talking about, believe it or not, 9/11, 23 years on, part 2.